Hello, welcome to my channel and welcome to Entertainment Industry Answers. I want to first say happy holidays and I hope you guys had the most wonderful Christmas ever. And I hope that you know to be safe going into the new year. Have fun, but please be careful. I have been asking you guys to inbox me any questions that you have about the entertainment industry. I have by far been bombarded with questions about what it was like to tour with Michael Jackson and Janet Jackson. I wanted to put it off until maybe a few episodes down the road. This seems to be the most popular question. So today we're going to talk about touring with Janet Jackson. What was it like? How did I get the gig? How did I prepare for the gig? How long was it? All these questions you guys have been asking me, we're going to address some of them today on Entertainment Industry Answers. Okay, so here we go. What was it like touring with Janet Jackson? The Janet Jackson tour was probably the tour that changed my life more than anything as far as my career is concerned. I had already done 2 or 3 tours prior to Janet Jackson. I toured with Vesta Williams, Jody Watley, and I toured with Sheena Easton. Those were the 3 major tours that I'd already done before Janet Jackson came about. I'd also done a lot of other work like television shows, award shows, small spot dates, but not really tours. I just kind of gotten to the point where I was starting to feel confident that my name was starting to circulate. I had been in LA quite a few years actually, about 5 years or so by the time the Janet tour came about. And I kind of gotten familiar with the music scene, and I was getting called for a lot of sessions and things like that. And I felt like I'm ready to kind of go to the next level. Janet Jackson's tour was absolutely next level. Vesta's tour was my very first tour. She was a new artist, so it was the perfect gig to break me into the scene. The tour I did after Vesta was Jody Watley's tour, which was a little more established, bigger production, more money, better hotels, this, that, and the other. Right after the Jody Watley tour, I ended up touring with Sheena Easton as a bass player and a singer. Even better pay, better stays, got featured more. I was doing duets with Sheena. I was just growing and learning more about the business, and I was at the point where I felt like I really want one of these big tours that's paying that next level money. I was a young father and husband at the time, so I was hustling. I was trying to get it. You know, it's funny, people ask me who was my manager, who was my agent. I never had a manager or an agent other than God. This is who I would talk to about my next moves. That's who would lead me to the right people and steer me from the wrong people, put me in the right place at the right time. In the early stages, I was young, I was green, I was learning, I was hungry, I was excited, nervous, because I was going into territory that I didn't know. So I was looking up to other touring musicians and singers, and I was just kind of following their lead a little bit, seeing what they were doing right and what they were doing wrong. And I would try to take that and use it as my guide. I always talk about God's orchestration. My entire career was a series of God's orchestrations. While I was touring with Jody Watley's tour manager, Marty Hom, his wife was expecting a baby, so he had to take a leave for, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. I can't remember. The substitute tour manager came in, and it was a man named Mark St. Louis. He was taking over everything, making sure things were going smoothly. And musicians on the road, we spend time in the bus or vans, we spend time on the plane. So of course, you know, it becomes like a family atmosphere, and you feel each other out, you know. You feel each other out, but we end up entertaining each other. So Mark St. Louis has the most incredible sense of humor. But it's even funnier because he has this very conservative, reserved look, and he's super professional, mega organized. He's absolutely, in my opinion, he's the best tour manager I've ever seen or worked with. But he's a complete comedian. I mean, will crack you up. So Mark gets on and he's just ragging on people. he's like making fun of this person and making fun of that person. He's going on and on and on. I'm like, yo, it's kind of funny, but I'm trying like to not laugh too loud because I'm the new guy. And then he turns to me and he starts on me, and I'm like, oh my God. Well, I'm laughing, but that's where I came from. So after a minute, I hit him back with something. And I'm not going to go into what we were saying because we were playing the dozens, but it was what it was. So I go back and forth with him, and he's like, oh. So the whole bus is cracking up. He's like, oh, I like him. And we had each other cracking up. And so did a gig, and we did the second gig. And Mark St. Louis came to me and he says, man, you're really good on the bass, and you sing as well, right? I said, yeah. He said, my full-time gig is I'm a tour manager for Sheena Easton. He said, well, you know what? If any job opening ever comes up over there, I'll put your name in the hat if you're interested. Really? He said, would you want to gig with her? I'm like, absolutely. And that was it. The next week or two go by, we ended up just becoming really cool. Like we thought the same things were funny. We picked up on the same stuff. We just became really cool. And Mark is also Patrice Russian's husband. Well, I'm a huge fan of Patrice Russian, but he was so dope doing what he does that you just admire what his gig is, We became cool and finished up the tour. He did his next week or two, whatever. He goes back to work. Marty Hom comes back. We finished the Jody Watley tour up, and I get a call. And Mark says, hey, man, there's an opening for Sheena Easton. We talked about that. Do you want to do it? I'm like, are you serious? Of course. He said, there's a guy that sings for her. His name is Joey Diggs. I said, I know who Joey Diggs is. Joey Diggs was like one of the singers that I looked up to. I didn't even know him, but I knew of him. And I was like, I know who Joey Diggs is. He's a beast. And so he said, yeah, he's been singing with her doing the duet. He said, can you do that? I'm like, of course, absolutely. So he says, yeah. No, I goes, can't give you the gig, but I can put you in the hat for an audition. I'm like, please. So he sets it up. Anytime someone sticks their neck out and puts their name on the line to put my name in the hat, I want to make them proud. I always want to make them proud. So I felt good. I got the gig, and I did the gig for a while as a vocalist. My friend Sam Sims was playing bass. Then he ended up getting hired with Paul Abdul, and I ended up playing bass and singing with Sheena Easton. So I got a chance to work with Mark a lot more. So now we've become like brothers. The Janet Jackson tour was getting prepared behind the scenes. That's the Way Love Goes had just come out. And we all saw Janet for the first time with this new mature look, this new sexy vibe, this mature, sexy, almost hippie type vibe. And the music was totally different. It was just it was a more mellow, smooth sound. And so we knew something was coming up. We knew she had a new album coming out at least. But she didn't share with anyone publicly that the tour was going to happen until it was almost happening. They contacted Patrice Russian to put all the music together for this tour, write it all out, and then help Janet conduct audition. She wanted all new band members. I think she may have kept 2 band members from the Rhythm Nation tour, but she didn't want to have an open call, and she didn't even want people to know that they were holding auditions. So kind of the way that I heard that it was presented to Patrice was, I want you to get me a certain amount of musicians for each category. 5 keyboard players for each position that I need in keyboards. 5 drummers, 5 bass players. Whoever you choose, I want them to be experienced in touring and have a great attitude, no drug habits, no drinking habits. You could only audition for this tour if you were contacted and asked. It wasn't talked about, so no one knew what was happening. And then once you were contacted and you were selected to audition, you were then told to say nothing about it to anyone, because that could jeopardize your position. Well, Patrice, she had seen me play and she knew of me through Mark. And so she called me and she said, listen, Janet Jackson is doing a new tour. I'm putting the band audition together and I'm scoring for the whole show, the whole concert. Would you be interested? I'm like, absolutely. I've never had an opportunity to get a gig that was paying like this, that was gigging this consistently, this long. I said, absolutely. She said, you know how it goes. I can't promise you the gig, but I can get you an audition. just get me the audition. Get me the audition. I'm gonna get it. So she said, well, you know, she's never used a male vocalist before on her tours. So this will be her first time using a male vocalist. She's gonna use 2 female vocalists and 1 male. So you gotta do your thing. I said, just let me know what I gotta do. She said, now mind you, it's only 1 position for a male, so all these guys are going for it. You better be ready. I'm like, I'm gonna be ready. She told me the names of the guys auditioning. Some I didn't know, some I did know. I was not intimidated by them. And I never forget, she said, Joey Diggs is going to audition. I was like, shit. I was like, dang it. I wasn't worried about anybody else, but Joey Diggs, I looked up to him. He had a great voice. He's a great looking cat. You know, he dressed well. I'm like, damn it. He's probably going to get the gig if he goes for it, you know. But I'm like, let me just do my thing. Let me just do my thing. So what they did was they sent us a packet. In this packet that came to our mail was a big, thick envelope, and it had the list of the songs they wanted us to learn for the audition, the date, the time, location, and then there was a list of everyone else who was auditioning. Now we all know who were also contacted. So if we want to have any communication with anybody, it can only be these people. In that packet, they had everyone's names and everyone's phone number. Here's what's even deeper than that. They put in there the groups that you would be auditioning with. So for the singers, we were auditioning 3 at a time. So in the packet, it says on July, whatever date it was, at 2 o'clock, vocals, Romeo Johnson, Amira Tatum, and Stacey Campbell. Now I knew Amira Tatum because I worked with her with Sheena Easton. I was like, okay, I don't know this young lady, Stacey Campbell, but her number was there. And it says, this is your group, this is the time. So it was just common sense for me to do what? Call her. So I called her. Hello, this is Stacey Campbell.
Yes, this is Stacey Campbell. Who is this?
This is Romeo Johnson.
Oh, hi, Romeo. I'm looking at your name right now. I just got this packet.
Where do you live?
Oh, I live in...
You think we should get together? We had probably over a month to prepare for this for sure. So I said, you want to get together and just go over some of these parts so we can blend and match each other's vibrato and tones and enunciations and things? Yes, absolutely. So we were both in California. Amira Tatum was in Texas. So I drove to Stacey's house and we would just practice. Oh my God, I don't know how many times we practiced. We just wanted, again, for this stuff to be second nature. We want to know those parts like the back of our hands. We want to know exactly how we were blending and where to cut off, where to breathe. We wanted it to be tight. So we would call Amira sometimes and sing over the phone, just so we knew parts. At the same time, Janet had a new look. I want to focus on the look. I want to go in with a look that fit her vision at that time. So I started watching the That's the Way Love Goes video. I want my wardrobe to already make sense when I go in there. I want to be in my best shape possible. I just want to be in great shape, and I wanted my lungs to be in great shape. And I would put those doggone songs in my ear, and I would fall asleep to them. And I'd wake up in the morning, and I'd play them again, I'd play them again. It was only 4 songs, but I wanted to know them. Just because of how I came up, I wanted to learn everybody's part. So I knew my part, I knew Stacey's part, I knew Amira's part. The time for the auditions came. Amira flew in, we were able to get in a couple of rehearsals, I think, with 3 of us together in person. We were nervous, but we were really tight. And we had our little swag, we had our little wardrobe, kind of put together some simple little choreography or whatever, just to show that we were a unit. And the day came. I couldn't sleep the night before, of course, and it just kept going over the parts, over the parts, over the parts. I kept drinking water because I didn't want to be dehydrated. I didn't want anything to go wrong. We get to the venue, and it's a lot of people in there. I see Stacey, I see Amira, and people walking in, and all of a sudden, this guy comes in and he goes, "Hey, who is he said someone's name. And that person goes,
That's me.
he goes, hey, what's going on? He said, I'm looking at the packet here. I see we're going to be singing together today. Oh, yeah. And I looked at Stacy and I looked around. And he said, who is Stacy? He was calling for the third person. And I was like, wait, bro, y'all just meeting? Yeah. Okay. Like you didn't practice on the phone or nothing? And you would have thought that I had given them some algebra question or something. And he was like, no. Man, when I tell you, my confidence started to shoot through the roof. I was more confident. I was more comfortable. I'm looking at Stacy like, they didn't rehearse. And then I started noticing other people looking at each other and trying to figure out who is who. Because they realized that this guy made this big scene and I called it out. No one else wanted to say anything, but I was looking at people looking at the charts like, oh my God. So I looked at Stacey, I was like, we're about to murder this stuff. I felt so good going in. I had prayed and worked out and studied. So I was more than prepared. Our time came, they opened the door, we walked in. It was 3 microphone stands. Janet was sitting down. Patrice was sitting beside her. They had a little table in front of them. There was a mixing board to the side and a sound man, my friend, his name was Malcolm. He was there. And that was it. Walked in the room, Malcolm, soundboard, Patrice, Janet, 3 microphones, and us. I walked in and I looked at Janet and I smiled. She looked at me and smiled. And Patrice said, this is Romeo, Amira, and Stacey. And so she goes, oh, so you're Romeo, huh? I'm like, uh-oh. I genuinely didn't know how to take that. Because at that point, I had already experienced some haterisms and some bull crap. I said, yeah, is that good or bad? She said, I mean, good, I guess. So I'm like, oh, snap. Not gonna let this shake me. Well, I had been writing with a young lady named Melanie Andrews for the past year or two. Super talented woman. Melanie was one of Janet's best friends coming up. And Melanie co-wrote Let's Wait a While, which was interesting because that was one of the songs we had to audition. But Melanie had a nickname for Janet, and I can't remember exactly what it was. I really can't. Something Bear or something like that, Pooh Bear, I don't know. But she said, when you go in, just say this name. She's gonna know exactly who it's from. So I'm like, okay. I said, hey, somebody said to tell you hello, and I said the nickname. And Janet was like, whoa, Melanie Andrew, you know Melanie? You know Melanie? And I was like, dang. So yeah, I do. We write together. And she says, oh my God, well, here's the trip. Melanie and her had been friends for a long time, doing the typical girl thing. They hadn't spoken in many years. I don't know why. I asked Melanie why. She was like, I don't know. I said, well, you should reach out to her. I'm not going to reach out to her. Right. When I tell Janet about the nickname or whatever, Janet goes, oh my God, Melanie, I miss her. She goes, oh my God, that was my best friend coming up. I said, yeah. I said, I got her number. I'll give you a number if you want to call her. She was like, Women crack me up, man. So they both had this whole, okay, But Melanie knew me. Janet didn't know me, so she was just like, okay. But they both almost came to tears when they would hear the other one's name. But they both were like, she can call me. She can call me. Hilarious. Anyway, I go up there to the mic and we get ready to sing. Patrice tells us a song to sing. We sing it. The first one goes by well. The second song she tells us to sing, she says, sing the first chorus and the bridge, something like that. She gave us instructions to sing first chorus, bridge, chorus out, or something like that. And so we started singing, blending perfectly, the 3 of us. I'll never forget this. This is one of the scariest moments in my life. The first chorus of this song was like a half chorus. The second chorus was like a double chorus with another lyric or whatever. So when we got to the end of that first chorus, I went to the part in the bridge. Both girls kept singing the double chorus. I was like, oh snap, I messed up. Patrice looked up, Janet looked up, and I'm like, dang it. And I thought, I was like, wait a minute. No. So in my head. I said, wait, you said the first chorus in bridge. You said the first chorus doesn't go to the double. The first is a single. You said first chorus in the bridge. And Patrice and Janet both looked at each other and they were like, you're right. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Oh, Lord. Thank you, Lord. I was so glad. I was like, it was cool. It was like anybody got in trouble. I just freaked out because I thought I messed up because I was the only one that didn't do what everyone else did. So I stuck out. So we move on. We go to the third song. We sound great on all three songs. And then Janet says, I have a surprise for you guys. I know this wasn't in the instructions. It's a surprise I'm just throwing at you guys. I want each of you to sing something a cappella. We weren't expecting that. Oh, I'm about to forget a really hilarious part. One of the songs that we had to do was Miss You Much. And in Miss You Much, there's an octave of the whole lead vocal. As Janet is singing, I'm literally having to sing the male octave of her whole lead through the whole song. What is that? What is Miss You Much? So she goes, shine, boom, boom, like an arrow through my heart. That's the pain I feel. So I had to go, shine, like an arrow through my heart. That's the pain I feel. You know, all the way through the song. I had learned this thing. I learned every inflection that she did. Even when she did the, I was like, I wasn't missing 13. And I was ready. I was excited. I was like, I can sing with Janet. Even if I don't get the gig, I can say I sang with her at the audition. So I'm all excited and I'm ready. So Patrice goes, let's do Miss You Much. I'm like, cool. She says, Romeo, you got to do the, I said, got it. I got it. So then she says, Romeo's going to do the octave with you. So she gives Janet the mic and Janet goes, do I have to sing for him to, can you? I really don't. I don't really want. Now, I don't know why I had gotten comfortable at that point. I really don't. I don't know if it's because I was just super prepared. I don't know if it was because, you know, we had the interaction about Melanie. But I got into a place in that 20 minutes or so where I just felt myself. And not felt myself like feeling myself, but I mean like I was feeling comfortable. Janet was like, do I have to? Do I have to? And I said, I don't need her. So they both looked at me and Janet was like, I said, Patrice, I don't need her. I can do this by myself. I don't need no guy. I got this. I can do this, but I don't need you. So we just bust up laugh, right? She's like, he's funny. I said, no, seriously, I got it, right? So we do the whole song. And I did every single inflection that I remember her doing. Even the, all of that Michael stuff, you know? I saw her looking like, oh my God, like he knows every breath. And we finished. That's when she said, I have a surprise for you guys. Each one of you do an acapella. Amira did a Whitney Houston. Stacy did an original. She says, okay. Last but not least, Romeo, what are you going to do? I said, would you rather hear Donny Hathaway or Luther Vandross or Marvin Gaye? Is that Marvin Gaye or Stevie Wonder? Sorry. Luther Vandross, Stevie Wonder, or Donny Hathaway. And she was like, dang, I don't know. Which one do you sound good doing? And I was like, all of them. We cracked up laughing. I don't know why I was so comfortable, but I was. And so we all started laughing. Patrice, by this time, already knew that. She already knew I was silly. So I said, I'll do Donny Hathaway. So I did a song for you. And I'll never forget when I finished, she just stared at me. And it was the most uncomfortable feeling because it wasn't a stare with a smile. It wasn't like, I'm in awe or that was awesome. It was just a stare. And at that second, I felt like she was looking at me like, really? That's what it felt like. Like, really? That's what you chose? And she goes, thank you. And I'm like, dang, okay. So me and the girl started to walk out, and I'm like, did I mess up by choosing that song? I'm all in my head. And as we're walking out, I just turned back to look at the table, and I kind of saw her and Patrice talking. And I could tell that they were pleased. So I went outside and waited with the group of people, whatever. And she and Patrice came up, and she said, we're going to go over some notes that we took, and we're going to go over who we like. You guys were all great, and we'll get back to you guys in a few days. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, okay. Because we've been anticipating this day for at least a month or more. But I was exhausted because I've been working out every day. I've been running every day. I've been drilling myself with these. So I was just kind of glad that it was over, and I was glad that my voice didn't crack or didn't forget a lyric or something like that. And I felt like, you know what, God, thank you. I couldn't have asked for a better audition. I think I did well. And if I don't get this, then that means that someone just did better, or it just wasn't for me. But I did. I'm happy with the audition. I go home. I'm so tired. I crashed out, and it was like afternoon. It may have been 4:30, 5 o'clock, but I got home and I crashed out. And I mean, I crashed out. And I remember the phone rang, and I woke up from a deep sleep, and I was like, hello?
Hi, Romeo.
I said, hi.
Hey, Patrice.
I said, hey, Patrice, how you doing? She said,
I'm good. How are you doing?
I said, I'm exhausted. Now I'm thinking that she just called to talk to me because we were already told they weren't going to have their choices made for a few days. So I'm thinking that Patrice is just checking on me. And she goes,
how you feel about your audition?
I said, I feel good. I feel good. I said, I felt like I did what I came to do. I didn't forget any lyrics. My voice didn't crack. I was in good voice. I think I did good. I just, hopefully no one else just came and did much better. She said,
good. Okay, we'll get you some rest. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I just wanted to call you and see how you felt about your audition, because yeah, so you got the gig. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.
I'm so tired. I'm like, bye. I grabbed the phone. I call her back. She just answers the phone giggling. What? Don't play with me. Don't play with me. Are you serious? She said, you got the gig. She said, you, Amira, and Stacy. She said, when you guys were walking out, Janet and I were talking as you were walking out the room. And she said, that's the group to be. I think it was 2 or 3 other groups had to come in. If anyone wants to get this gig, they got to be this group. She said that whole unit was tight. So she hired myself, Amira Tatum, Stacy Campbell. That was one of the best days of my life. Definitely one of the best days of my career, because I knew that things were going to change. I knew that the pay was on another scale. It was consistent. We were booked for a solid year, maybe more. I was super excited about that, and it changed my life. That was how I got to the gig and the audition process.
Oh no! Huh?